Montana This Morning continues on Montana's News Leader.
This morning, both the east and west coast are being threatened by powerful storms. I'm Hannah Doba at LaGuardia Airport in New York. I'll have more on the hundreds of flights that have been canceled and the coastal communities that have been evacuated.
And two men who've served more than 20 years in the Montana State Prison for murder are exonerated by DNA evidence. Coming up, how the new evidence points to someone else who already had a murder record in the state.
That's an exclusive story for us here on Montana This Morning at 6:30. Right now, Matt steps in to join us. East Coast, West Coast, we're somewhere in the middle, and we're going to get a little weather too. It just doesn't.
Really, it's down to get toward Oneida Pass, Reynolds Pass, those areas, Targhee Pass. That's where we're seeing the biggest impacts. But we've had some spinouts along I-90 on Homestake Pass. It's going to be kind of a tough go for a few areas. Chains required for those trucks on Homestake Pass this morning for sure. Temperature-wise, we're doing okay. It's actually very mild with the temperatures across the area. Of course, that means that some of these areas are going to be dealing with some pretty wet snow, especially as you get along the Montana-Idaho state line at times today. It doesn't look all that impressive there, but again, the road conditions, snow and ice on Homestake Pass right now reported dry. On Bozeman Pass and closer to West Yellowstone, you get more snow we're dealing with. We're kind of quiet in Bozeman. We'll probably see some rain changing over to snow by the afternoon today. And right now, light snow in Butte for the early part of the morning. We're going to talk more in depth about your forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
Yeah, and we're not alone in that either, Matt. Forecasters are warning residents on both the east and west coasts of potentially life-threatening severe weather today and into the weekend.
That's right. Even before the storms started to roll in, they started creating all sorts of headaches for travelers. Hannah Doba is at LaGuardia Airport in New York with our latest.
On both coasts, March is most definitely entering in like a lion. In the Northeast, residents from Washington, D.C. to New England are in the path of a nor'easter. This is snow in Erie, Pennsylvania, already contributing to thousands who've lost power. Heavy rain, massive flooding, and hurricane-force winds are also in the forecast.
The gusts in some cases may go as high as 90 miles an hour, which will blow someone over.
The storm has the potential to be a historic, crippling event, in particular for coastal towns like Scituate, Massachusetts. Officials there are warning of a storm surge that could reach around 3 feet, waves up to 30 feet during severe weather expected to last through 3 high tides.
The winds are going to hold those waters onshore, and then the next tide will come in, and the next tide will come in, so there's not going to be a lot of drainage.
All the weather is also wreaking havoc on those with plans to fly this weekend. Hundreds of flights have already been canceled. Here in New York, officials warn there will be more delays to come if the snow and winds materialize as predicted. On the West Coast in Southern California, heavy rain has begun to fall. About 30,000 residents hit hard by deadly wildfires and the subsequent mudslides were ordered to evacuate. The fear is the now barren landscape could be even more prone to mudslides. Hannah Doba, CBS News, New York.
Now, if you are among those with plans to fly these next few days, check with your carrier. Many airlines have issued travel waivers along with passengers to change their flights without penalty.
Well, Montana's having its own weather emergency 2 days after Governor Bullock declared a state of emergency for parts of northern Montana. He got an up-close look at some of the severe winter weather there. Governor Bullock flew to the Blackfeet Nation yesterday with the Montana National Guard. He met with Blackfeet tribal council leaders to discuss what help they need. The governor then got on a bus and rode through town to see for himself. He saw drifts rising to the tops of homes and snowbanks so tall they blocked his view from the bus. Bullock says seeing this situation in person really gives him an appreciation for the work everyone has been doing to try to help the communities hit hardest by this weather.
Where it can literally kind of shut down a town and everybody has to work just to make sure that folks get the propane and food they need is something that certainly is significant here.
Officials say in Browning, some residents haven't left their homes in more than 3 weeks, and I know that's the same way out in that Hart Butte area as well, out towards East Glacier, that direction. talking to some friends from Browning yesterday in town for the state aid tournament,
Yeah.
just saying it's incredible west of town out there.
And you were saying to them, I'm glad that you guys made it down.
Yeah, we're actually able to make it, but just absolutely devastating what's going on up there. So all help
And
is
they
appreciated.
are, and we mentioned it quite a bit yesterday, they're still needing diapers and formula and food. And
firewood.
Yep, firewood.
Those
A lot
kind
of
of
different
things
ways
as
to
well.
help out.
Absolutely true.
Absolutely. This is a fascinating story now, too. 2 men serving life sentences for the 1994 murder of a Helena area woman could soon be set free after new DNA evidence points to someone else as the killer.
And this new suspect is already in prison serving 2 life sentences for a double homicide in Deer Lodge and is the man who terrorized Hamilton woman back in 1998. The new evidence could set Paul Jenkins and Fred Lawrence free after more than 20 years in prison. Now, a jury convicted Jenkins and Lawrence for the murder of Donna Marr, who was kidnapped and beaten to death outside a bar west of Helena. But in the past few years, the Montana Innocence Project reviewed the evidence, and what is uncovered has shaken this case to the core. The new DNA test on crime scene evidence shows it belongs to David Wayne Nelson, a man already in prison for killing a Deer Lodge area mother and son some 2 years ago, but who had served time for a violent attack on a Hamilton woman back in the late 1990s. Paul Jenkins' lawyer, Thad Atkins, is working this case with the Montana Innocence Project. In a statement, he tells us, quote, Paul Jenkins and Fred Lawrence have spent more than 23 years in state custody for crimes they did not commit. He went on to say, we hope that the Attorney General's office will determine that the interests of justice outweigh defending these wrongful convictions and stipulate to Paul and Fred's release from prison. He also says Montana Innocence Project deserves enormous credit for uncovering new evidence and bringing this story to light.
Now, the man whose DNA is now in question is that murder 24 years ago. Someone who's made headlines before, but most recently for the brutal robbery and murder of a mother and son in Deer Lodge. As Dennis Bragg reports, it was a theft that netted him thousands of dollars in silver, but also a trip back to prison.
It was 2 years ago this winter most of us got our first look at David Wayne Nelson as he returned to a Ravalli County courtroom after he'd been implicated in the disappearance of a well-known mother and son in what turned into a Powell County murder case. Nelson, who we believe comes from Dillon, first had a brush with the law for burglary in Beaverhead County in 1981, which sent him to prison for 3 years. The next major incident on his record was just short of 20 years ago in Hamilton. Prosecutors said Nelson and his nephew tied a woman's wrist with baling wire and then held a gun to her husband's head, demanding money. He'd been convicted of robbery, assault, and kidnapping, although his first 20-year sentence was later reduced on appeal to the Montana Supreme Court because no one had actually been hurt. It was after he was released on parole for that crime in 2015 when David Wayne Nelson became a certain killer. 79-year-old Beverly Giannotti and her son Greg vanished from their Deer Lodge homes in October, leaving law enforcement, friends, and family to search frantically for the pair. Their bodies were found at a dump site outside town in late November. Powell County authorities said Nelson had been working for the pair as a handyman when he hatched the scheme to beat Greg Giannotti to death with a hammer and then strangle his mother with electrical wire, stealing 17 bars of silver that he tried to pawn in Missoula, the step that led to his arrest. Nelson's parole for the 1998 assault was revoked in Ravalli County, sending him back to prison. In September of 2016, he pled guilty to killing the Giannottis and last year was sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison. Dennis Bragg, MTN News.
Fascinating story right there. Meantime, in other news in Seeley Lake, Wednesday night, the community relived the events of a long, grueling fire season. MTN's Augusta McDonald was there, where many of the agencies involved with working that fire returned to answer some area residents' questions.
The extreme fire conditions that defined summer 2017's fire season also set apart some moments and decisions that were made during the course of the volatile 160,000-acre Rice Ridge fire.
45,000 acres to well over 100,000 acres overnight.
The elementary school multi-purpose room was packed Wednesday night with people who lived through it.
There were a lot of questions about the fire. It was a very major event over what they say 72 days in length. And a lot of the information on a fire this size is not necessarily readily available to the community. So it was an opportunity for us to get all the experts together and make sure that the factual information about what was involved in this fire was presented to the community, and at the same time allow them to ask some questions back about that they may have about what occurred during those 72 days.
One Seeley Lake resident attended Rice Ridge fire meetings throughout the summer.
There would probably be 75 to 100 to 125 people in the gym. So it was pretty cool, though, to see a lot of those same people back here again.
Alyssa McLean was evacuated for 5 weeks.
I was surprised that the questions were mild in nature and not really angry, and I think that's because their presentation was very thorough and informative.
Panelists came from all over, including the Lolo National Forest and the Missoula County Sheriff's Office, which was responsible for evacuations. They presented information that put the blaze in the context of available resources and surrounding fires. One of the key topics was how Seeley Lake can move forward to become a better fire-adaptive community. Augusta McDonald, MTN News, Seeley Lake.
Now, Augusta tells us FireWise Montana materials were made available during that. Those documents talk about how homeowners can make choices on everything from roofing to landscaping to protect their properties in areas where forests and people converge.
And yesterday, young future scientists got to observe and learn from MSU's administrators and students at Science Day. Kids from Highlight, Whittier, and Irving Elementary School had the opportunity to learn from 30 different science and tech programs from across the university. MSU staff also had the opportunity to share their knowledge and research with the young minds. Science Day is a two-part event. The students from 3 schools had their chance to explore the Science Day in the morning, while the expo opened to the public between 5 and 7 last night.
So a couple of the activities that we have here, we're part of a NASA project that flies kites and collects remote sensing data. So we have kids who are making miniature kites using plans from NASA. That's pretty cool. We have a whole section that's about nanotechnology, so very small scale science and engineering.
Looks like a great time
Awesome
up
stuff
on
there.
campus. Looks like the kids were having just a blast.
Very good.
We do have to take a quick little break here on your first Friday in March. Here's a quick little sneak peek of what's coming up on Montana this morning.
It's a tribute to Hollywood, 90 years in the making. I'm Chris Martinez in Los Angeles with an inside look at the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures.
Good morning. Ahead on CBS this morning, we're tracking the big storm causing flooding concerns and flight cancellations in the Northeast. And 2 NFL players are moonlighting on Capitol Hill. See how they're huddling with politicians in an act of bipartisanship. It's part of our series, A More Perfect Union. See you at 7.